Good day, everyone, and thanks for that kind introduction and allowing me to be part of today. As you can tell, and has already been introduced, I'm Andrew, or Andy, whichever you prefer. You can tell by the strong accent. I'll try to talk slow and not get carried away, but if I do start talking fast, please just raise your hand and I'll slow down. It's an Irish habit of talking too much and too fast. So I've been with SAF since just over a year now. Previous to that, I was in the military for 24 years, which was serving max time. And a lot of that roles were sort of counterinsurgency, counterterrorism, which all had links to poaching as a fund, their activities. So that's what drew me into this world after leaving the military. So what we're going to hopefully do today is I want to discuss what today is about and what I hope to achieve and get from today, as well as use. Who SAFSIM are, what we do, and it's already been introduced, Exercise Green Rock, which is a make-believe scenario to allow people to draw out all people's views and see how people think, because everyone approaches different problems from a different mindset according to their background and experiences in life. Okay, I want to talk about how we do. I'm going to discuss some things today. Later in the year, I'll be giving another talk. So today's focus, after we do Exercise Green Rock, will be more on things that I have found issues coming into the conservation world, or issues that I see, or problems that often are overlooked and need more attention. And we'll finish off with a question and answer session at the end. So aim of today is collective brainstorming exercise to improve the knowledge for all. I'm a big believer in collective input from everyone, regardless of how much experience you've had in this field. Everyone's got something to offer, and it's better to share our experience, brainstorm, red team, whatever terminology you like to use. I believe it's great to share our experiences, our plans here in a sort of a safe environment. Whereby nothing wrong. I expect if I was bringing a new solution or problem, someone to red team it with me to obviously look at a different perspective and how the poaching or locals will react to the schemes or activities we're doing. So it's a great safe environment, and there's always something to learn from everyone. It can be very technical, doing it in a classroom or a conference room, or it can be even sitting around the fire, but it's really worthwhile doing some brainstorming to get those collective ideas and thinking going. So what is SAFSIM? Again, SAFSIM utilizes veterans and bringing them into the wild conservation environment. Again, it's not just military. We were sort of recruiting, have a pool of trainers from all aspects, for health service, fire, police, which gives us a really good pool to use for the conservation. Again, our mission is SAFSIM means together, and our mission is to protect wildlife in areas. And as I already said, it's not just focused on maybe that sort of military side, patrolling, guards, etc. We give a broad spectrum of talent out there, whether it be helping you with your business model, building bridges, engineering, IT, infrastructure, building bridges, anything like that. We can aid any park or whatever needs they have. And the other side of the house, as such, within SAFSIM, a lot of these veterans from whatever walk of life they've come from do suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder from their life of service. So we do a lot of help rebuilding people. We use animal and nature to help that process. We recently ran a course with ZSL, and it was really reassuring and very rewarding to hear people say that they feel safe now. We've really helped them to get a night's sleep, or they feel like they have got a future and life is worth living. And especially with COVID, as everyone experienced recently, this has been amplified, that loneliness. And that's what a lot of post-traumatic stress comes from. It's not just the event or the flashbacks they receive. It's also from that loneliness of leaving that service and that comradeship. And our ultimate aim is to help rehabilitate these people into working life and actually use them to contribute to wildlife and nature. So that brings us on to Exercise Green Rock. Again, it's for those who just joined us, it's a make-believe exercise just on the peninsula of Mozambique with Lake Malawi. And the students were given the question set you see in front of them. It's sort of from the 7 questions. You can find that anywhere on the internet by just typing in 7 questions. It's a tool we sort of use in the military to analyse and make deductions and plans from. And it's a great tool to use in any walk of life that I find is tried and tested to help you make sure you're analysing and your plan is on the right track. Again, not to give too much away, but again, it's a new park reserves being created, and the students were given the problem of different issues within that area, especially one being by community faced. So I'll hand over the first 2 students if they want to. Amara, if you come in to give the names for the who's going to be answering question 1, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Christine Wagner. I'm a second-year nature conservation student at PUT. I first want to start off. We read the article in class. It's where they said there's a low threat. Low threat doesn't mean no threat. Life is unpredictable. The client wants to feel safe. We need well-trained rangers that can control and manage fires, rangers that can prevent bushmeat raids, and if a guest gets injured, we need immediate first aid. Armed security is needed for the protection of a guest, workers, and animals. Socio-economic issues. People are living off the land. More skilled people are needed. Those making sure people are educated and living sustainably. Protecting the Ramsar site.
No, that's a really good answer, and that was one of the things I put in there deliberately, and as well you picked up on that hook. Yes, there is currently low crime at the minute, but you always have to remember what is the reaction going to be of locals moving into the area. And one of the key deductions was there's a fishing policy and where the locals aren't allowed to fish within 100 meters of the coastline because it's the breeding ground of certain fish. And they're currently doing that because no one's there to prevent them. But when you start to enforce the policy, that is going to have a negative reaction. So we always must look at courses of action of what the locals are going to do, or the third, fourth order effect. If we stop that, how are they going to feed their family? So we'll have to give them an alternative means of feeding their family and sustainment. And you picked up on very much, and I wanted you to do on the crime side of things. And again, it's when you move into an area or a new project, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world, even here in the UK, especially when we start building new rail lines, there is a uptick in thievery in that area, and likewise people will see that opportunity. They will know and hear of the project, and people will know there's been opportunity here to make money, and you will likely see, and recently, even a few months ago in Northern Africa, I was working, and as we developed a new area and new reserve, there was an influx of to the villages from people far away because they've seen an opportunity to earn money from theft. So thank you very much for that. Question 2.
Good morning, my name is John William Hannibal. I'm second year nature conservation student. Question 2 is, what have I been told to do and why? Is to establish the area as a well-developed conservation area for biodiversity and tourism by building infrastructure in the area from airfields, roads, accommodation, and to establish a fully functional ranger task force to enforce conservation laws and safety against human and wildlife threats.
What do you think your first priority would be in establishing that, and what's the main aim?
I think the main aim to establish a ranger task force is first to build a relationship with the community around and to get people that are willing to work with you to establish it.
Yes, really good to bring that out, because the community will come on it later on, but the community is key, and that was one of the clients' specific things was, and it needs to be community facing, and we need to build towards, one of his key expectations was build towards 100% of local employment in the future. Is there any other sort of task you think you would end up doing?
I think Christian, my partner, who's doing the question with me, will.
Okay.
All right. Hello everyone, my name is Christian Mulaja from Toronto University of Technology. Yes, I would also like to add on what John just said. We will build some kind of green energy around the reserve to avoid to be cutting tree every time for cooking and some other activity that require energy. Instead of using tree, we will be using green energy as solar energy or aeolian energy. And also we'll make sure that the reserve is well managed with when it comes to finance and make sure that everything is very clean and well knit. Yes.
Yeah, all good. So again, obviously you seem to grasp what the intent was and the aim of the overall project. But again, always look for what is sort of implied and implied task from a client or when you're tasked by someone. So they give a broad spectrum of tourism, but really do a really good deep dive into all those unimplied tasks that you'll have to do, especially linking in with government officials, the local police, security forces of that area. You do not want to go off on a tangent and affect and not have that rapport and build with the local government infrastructure, because it's very easy to offend them if they feel that you're doing a solo act and not including them into your plan. So always be very much overt going to the government officials in that area and making them feel a part of the project and part of the decision mill. So that would be one of the implied tasks that I would take away from that task. And again, also list down that security is interlinked in everything we do. For a park like this to be set up, so you need to make sure one of those implied tasks is you need to be attending all the meetings, all the discussions, right down to how the infrastructure is going to be built, where it's going to be built, because you need to have a security slant on it, because you need to protect all these areas, as is already sort of pointing out, to secure the tourism. You need to secure them on the roads and inside the accommodation from the minute they step onto the reserve. Otherwise, it's reputation damage. Thank you very much. We'll move on to question 3.
Greetings to you all. I am Taba Mashala, a second year TUT student. First of all, I'll look on goals on achieving to ensure that our guests are protected from a bushfire and also theft. First of all, I will educate local people as a game ranger to ensure that our guests have a safe space. Secondly, I will ensure that we hired a well-driven people to ensure that our guests arrive in our lodge safe.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. You seem to pull out a couple of the two sort of main points I had. Again, it doesn't have to be when you think about what effects you have, if you're doing this on a mind map or on a whiteboard or anything like that, even have the map or the area in place and just start putting key effects you want to have down. So very much you brought out protection as a big thing. You've seen that, security. But it's nice to see you also brought out one of the key deductions I had, and we've already sort of touched on it, was the community. You need to develop local people in the area, and that will give you sustainment in the future. Because even you can do this on a whiteboard and put the key rings in, but start drawing lines off, develop how I'm going to develop, and you can really start creating a whole list of things that you need to achieve. I need to educate. What is the you always bring a lot of so education, I need to educate them, but what is the education level within the area, and then that brings out more key deductions of what you need to think about. But you sort of had the main ones there. You need to protect, you need to develop the area, and you need to secure the area to allow things to progress, even to start the build of the infrastructure. That sort of, you need to clear the area, you need to protect it, and you need to secure it and maintain that security moving forward. So thank you for that. Move on to question 4.
My name is Doura Maroga. I'm firstly, I would like to thank you, Mr. Andrew, for your time, and to Mr. John Kruger. Thank you for the work that you're doing to make sure that this platform come to work. To accomplish the action and effect, I think firstly we have to engage with the community. But before engaging with the community, we must make sure our staff understand the mission, the goal, and the vision of the project. We have to train our staff so that they can be well motivated and acquire the leadership, communication, and problem solving and firefighting skills. And also the game rangers, they must well be prepared to work with the community and so forth. And after getting our staff at the right track to work with the communities is whereby we can go and engage with our community, implementing some other project like having the wildlife or fauna and flora protection campaigns, providing the helping with the education training, and also do some other community development for the wildlife and for the wildlife, flora and fauna campaign. We can have maybe a community scout that can work hand in hand with the game rangers to make sure that the hunting and the use, the unnecessary cut of trees is well moderated. And then in terms of the education, we can work with the school, try to interlink education with the environment, try to mobilize education in school, maybe working with the stakeholders from the tourism sector, the leaders from the communities, to provide better education, making providing the competition, like maybe if the top student, they get the opportunity to go to the lodge, being there, experiencing nature, in order to grow the true custodian of wildlife and flora and fauna. So in this way, I think is how we can accomplish our action and effect.
Okay, thank you very much for that sort of detailed answer you give there. And yeah, remember sort of shaping the task you were given in the title was the shaping needs analysis. Doing your analysis of what we need to do. Again, you've pulled out a couple of key areas, sort of key terrain, vital ground, whatever you want to refer to it as. As a community, the villages themselves, and then you drill down even further, mentioning schools. But again, you could really go a step lower when you think about schools, especially when you're going to go there for the first time because you've never visited there. So key questions that you'd want to make a list of questions you need to understand. If you understand the communities and the schools are your vital ground that you need to have an impact in, and you can really drill down to a really good question set that you could bring with you. How's the school powered? Has it got any power? Have it got any infrastructure whatsoever? And you could, that's so what from that you could glean out a lot of information where you could have then projects you need to build on the school. So you've identified that really well, that the communities is sort of key to ground, and that you need to be there to actually have an impact. And also like the way you went on to different rewards and stuff, because that's key. If people feel there's a reward there, like best student you had, it is really key for developing people. So really good that you've detailed that the communities are sort of the key ground, and that's where we're going to probably best achieve our objective there, or in our own camp itself. Very good you thought about bringing people into the camp, making them feel part of it, but also always think of that sort of insider threat, sort of going off on a bit of a tangent, that only let people see inside your security bubble of how you operate, that you want to see. But they're really, really good. Number 5.
Hello, my name is Segele Chofajo. I'm a second year student from TUT. So the question says, what resources do I need to accomplish each action effect? So like from the document, they said there's human-wildlife conflict. So it has been said that crocodiles in lakes limit access after sunset and before dawn. So what we'll do is that we'll build in boreholes near those communities that are within the Manda wilderness area so that they'll be able to access water, and we will also reduce human-wildlife conflict. So we'll have programs educating the community about learning behaviors of animals with a great teamwork, like elephants. They prefer crops like sugarcane. So like what they have to do, they have to invest in crops like turmeric and chilies because elephants, they don't prefer those kind of crops. And I also heard that the Manda Wilderness Conservation Area has no rangers to guard against bushfires, illegal mining, or forestry. So what we can do, we can use drones as security to monitor any terrorists coming to the conservation area, or have camera traps that can also monitor the area. Yeah. So since Mozambique is close to the ocean, so during events like cyclones, we have to be prepared.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, you identified some things there, but again, this is probably, I think, one of the most hardest questions to answer. What resources? Because you could really go on forever, especially when you're thinking about security. You're going to have, there's a lot of resource lists you're going to, and this will be a massive list to start off with, because not only you need to think about, we're very much focused on, we need to get rangers and stuff in, we need to train them, we need to do this for the community, we need to protect from the elements of the weather and stuff, which brought out some of the resources you need. So to protect from the weather, you're going to need strong infrastructure, you're going to be able to repair buildings when they're damaged. You know, how are you going to get that, those resources and equipment in? What sort of procurement facilities? Is all right getting equipment there, but when things break, how are you going to fix it? So you're going to need someone there qualified to be a mechanic to fix vehicles, to allow you transport. So how are you going to get vehicle spares in there? Even going down as far as picking one subject, for example, training new park rangers, you're going to need facilities for them to sleep, eat, classrooms to teach. All the resources you're going to need. You need to supply them with uniforms, maybe some weapons if it's required. So the resource part is really, really detailed, and you need to really submerge yourself into it and think, right, I've just turned up, what do I need to achieve that? And sort of visualize it in your mind, or draw it on a whiteboard. You know, if you're coming to your classroom today, what do you need? You need some sort of, you have to have IT power, a building. How's that building repaired? You really need deep dive into the details of, you know, how you need to do that, and especially if you're responsible for the security of the park rangers, you need to think of their welfare and everything they will need, for medication, for malaria, you know, malaria sprays, you know, how to prevent malaria in the first place. You know, you need nets for them to sleep in. So really, when you're thinking about resources, you really need to, it's not just the big things where we need to get people, you need to really deep dive into all the minute things that you would need, especially starting up a new event. So that's probably the most hardest question. So I hope you take that away, and for everyone, and really think about and sort of war game it in your head, what you need to do to achieve your mission and task. But thank you for that. Move on to question 6.
There's no such time as no place for such, rather than now, through thorough planning. Trained people are required to implement these actions, and every now and then there should be top up courses for more knowledge. Everyone involved must be passionate enough to be doing what they love from their heart, and they must also preach what they are saying.
This question is really good to set out your vision and timeline. So just using the park regions, for example, and how that's going to take place. So you need to obviously find them. So you need to have a recruitment phase, and that you could pencil that in for a number of weeks. You need to have a selection process, and then you need to have a training model, and then you need to have how you're going to deploy them. So again, from that simple one, you've got 3 or 4 boxes you need to tick off there, and key objectives you need to reach. And from then you can really dive into, right, what's the training model going to look like? What's the recruitment model going to look like? What sort of tests and standards do I want to have? So this one, you need to, get back to the very much basics as such, and think about remember you're starting off from day one here. So you need to remember back to how am I going to recruit people, how long that's going to take, and really do a really good deep dive mind map. So that's what I'm sort of looking from that. It's great to think about further courses and training people, but remember we haven't even started yet. So you need to remember the outline of the task, and I need to obviously find people. I need to select them, and then I need to train them, and then I need to deploy them. And rightly, as you said, further courses to maintain the standards. So again, from that, you've got some key titles there, and then you need to build on each one of those titles of organizing of how things are going to work out. And then from this, you can build a timeline, how long things are going to take, and you have a rough scheme of maneuver of when you're actually going to be operational, because the client will ask, okay, when can I start bringing tourism stuff here? But you won't be able to give them a timeline of when that they'll be able to achieve that. So that's critical for the overall strategic planning of the park. Question 7.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa. I'm a second-year student from TUT. The question for number 7 says, control measures do I need to impose? Before we have any control measures, we need to know to do the environmental impact assessment. Environmental impact assessment is an approach to environmental management and protection, where we provide information bases for activities affecting the environment. So in this case, we need to, the document says that there is a low risk, but it doesn't mean that there is no risk. So for us to prevent any major risk, we need to provide game ranges or ranges. In that case, we need to monitor them being trained, to see that they're being trained in the right way. With that said, I'll give this to my partner, Angel.
Good morning, everyone. For my control measures, the control measures that we need to impose are firstly by evaluating and selecting temporary and permanent control measures. We need to implement temporary measures until permanent controls can be put into place. For example, in the case of training ranges, temporary measures might require us to start by firstly training the security guards who are already employed to gain skills that rangers have. In the meantime, they can try to guard against bushfires, the bushmeat trade, illegal mining, and illegal training. The long-term measures are to train a handful of rangers from the community and so forth. In addition, we need to properly identify potential risks during the planning and managing throughout the whole project. We also need to understand the time and the costs that are going to be spent on the project. Thank you.
No, thank you for that. You had a couple of key points. Again, control measures, these are measures that you need to implement for everyone's safety and deconfliction. And you had a number 1 security there. Again, one control measure could be that no one's allowed to leave the camp unless they're in pairs in case something happens. You're not allowed to travel into the park so far due to the fact your medical chain of how long it's going to take to carry that person back to the camp if they're bitten by a snake. Other control measures you could think of would be what is your rules and law? What are you legally allowed to do? For example, if you do catch poachers, or to deter the fishing and push it back to the 100-meter limit where it should be. So these are all control measures you should be thinking about. How can I simple rules for everyone to follow for everyone's safety? And you brought that, you mentioned safety in there, so it was good. So you are thinking of it, but really dive into the detail of measures I need to implement for everyone's safety, and that's where we're going with control measures I need to do. Because time is getting on. Thank you. I think we could actually talk for all day on those subjects and questions and all, and I hope it's been useful, and more open to do stuff like this again. We can make it a harder example, but the key from that is it got everyone thinking. You pulled out the key objective, which was obviously setting the park up. You need to provide security, and you need to develop the local community. So a great first start. And again, you can build on that and have discussions later under your teacher and about how you would develop the plan in the further. But I'm just going to push on quickly and run through some of the key issues that I find coming into the sort of commercial conservation world. So funding, this is one of the biggest issues that I had coming into the world. Previously, all of my work was government, so had secure funding. But for use, this is probably I've learned. I've went to parks and developed all these schemes and plans, and all sort of fell at the first hurdle with funding, because the funding is often the limiting factor of how you can actually train and how many people you can train, unfortunately. Because a lot of organization, you have to write, the funding has to come from within your own organization, or from grants or donations, which creates a stable funding. Our training should be based around actually need analysis of what's actually needed at the time. But as I said, unfortunately, it very much is the training and the length of training, the numbers of park rangers you have will come down to funding. So you need to understand this from the start, I think, and this is one of my key hurdles, and it will always be a continued problem for security and developing that. I had a call recently with a friend who came to me looking at advice. He was renewing his budgets, and everyone was coming to requesting more funding, especially in the tourism side, for example. They were showing the profit margin and the money they were bringing for the reserve, and if they received extra money from the fund, they could actually increase the profits coming into the reserve for the benefit of all. But security, it's very hard to demonstrate how you're actually making money to keep the park running, is what I'm trying to get to. Is you need to have that sort of business mind in your head from the start, and understand the key funding limitations of what you can actually achieve, and work to that budget. So wherever I go now, it's one of the key questions I ask, how this is going to be funded to work to the client's needs, and how best to use that resource. Another one, heat training. So environment awareness training. I was quite struck. We have SAFs, before we deploy anyone, regardless of what they come from or their background, we make sure they're properly trained before they deploy out into the area. And heat training is there to develop people's awareness, both given theory and practical tests of the environment they're going to be working to. And that could be very basics to training, going through scenarios, going through customs posts, getting stopped at illegal checkpoints, how they pack their equipment, what they dress and wear as, removing that big shiny watch from you, right until up to the level of high threat environment where there's possibility of getting kidnapped. And I was quite struck last year when I was in Mozambique. And as we all know, there is a severe risk of terrorism and kidnapping in that country. And where it was in the northern part of the country, the insurgency was only a 4-hour drive away. And there's a real lack of, there's a number of university students there to carry out master's degrees and etc. And I was really struck by lack of preparedness from them. And some of them were open and honest, said, yeah, I'm really scared of getting kidnapped, and I don't know how I'm meant to react. And I felt really sorry for them. And people were going out, and they were going out collecting their studies and engaging the community, but they were going out for 12 hours away, and there was no one monitoring where they are, etc. So whenever you deploy anyone or going to deploy anywhere, you need to do a lot of research into the country, and be prepared to go to that country, and make sure you're properly trained in awareness of the risks and how you're going to mitigate and deal with those risks. Again, another area that we find is overlooking this from Zambia. Again, the park, very open and honest. They had no sort of key infrastructure and logistics training, and it's come back to funding again. They were spending a lot of money. There's a lot of items going missing or unaccounted for. So we came in and sent someone for 6 weeks to build an infrastructure and logistics chain for them. And again, it's that old attitude that army marches on a stomach, or if you don't have the logistics in place, you're not going to be there to win that battle when you deploy. And this is key for them. I would say we went there, we built infrastructure, we created proper stores of equipment, and we made sure it's safe and secure. It's straight away on how their procurement, how they order things in, how they store stuff. And in that 6 weeks, you've seen that there's a finished project. They're now accountable. They know what they actually have, and it's already saving themselves already a tight budget money. Because we can make sure stuff is secure. It's not going missing. And both internally and externally, from people coming in trying to feed from the camp, by having secured it. But also it helps towards the operational. We created stores for the patrols and the quick reaction forces, so their stuff's packed in day sexes, but yet it's secured. We're due to go back later and hopefully deliver a driving course for, again, a number of issues they were having was vehicles getting damaged and broken because people didn't understand how to drive correctly, especially in rough terrain. So we're going back to help them with that. Again, all building on to the operational output to have more sustained people vehicles, but also people able to drive safely there as well. So always think about an infrastructure. It's very easy to set things up, but you need to make sure you maintain that and hold and secure that ground that you've actually taken. Promote development, again, is something that we introduced at the same park. It's very easy to train someone and then that's it. People think that's it. We always must maintain and develop our standards. So what we did, as someone brought out earlier on, by having a champion student, whatever, in the school, someone identified, but we did the same. Only we set a number of training objectives that each park ranger must achieve every year. That maintains your current standards, but also you can bring in extra training like equipment care, how to look after new equipment, how to use that new equipment in the first place, and any new policies that you want to bring in as well. It's a great tool. We created a badge and a certificate every year that once a park ranger passes course, then to requalify, every year they must pass these tests, and they keep wearing their badge and they get a new certificate of it. But also you can bring it out and stretch it over the year. Something that we did was for like the patrol reports, have a competition what team commander produces the best patrol reports, and it really envisages the commanders to really enhance their reports. People are adding photographs in, detailed sketches of how they found a snare, for example, or how they caught a poacher, and then that's a great tool then to develop and learn from and pass on best practices. And sort of linked to that is your employees are your biggest resource that you have. They come to work every day for you and support your organization. So we need to make sure we're invested in them. And some of the key things that we try to do is try to look for other qualifications. There's plenty out there online, either through LinkedIn or free training courses online. For example, one of the control rooms I was working in, I set up some IT so they can be better at computers and stuff like that. Develop free courses with them. They really were just human sponges, want to soak up all knowledge, but that spreads and it's infectious, and then everyone wants to develop, everyone wants to do better. They tell their friends, they tell their family, which straight away you as an employer, as an organization, already have a bigger pool now to recruit from, because everyone wants to come and work for you, and you're creating a better path for the future. But also remember, a lot of these locations, organizations, I find have a really big turnover. So we need to invest in our employees for the future. So make sure you have a growth plan within your organization of how to bring people up to the next level, and succession plan as such for when people will move on. Always have yearly reviews, and don't always wait for that yearly review to give your park rangers or workers feedback on that. And as I said, create a mentoring program to develop your employees to look at where they're going to promote into next and the next job. So you have good resources, you have that continuity of knowledge within your own organization. Again, really for me, was brought out, the community is a key terrain, and sort of any of the work I've done throughout the world in the military, you know, you can be successful in every other field, but if you do not have the community support, you are going to, it's a losing battle as such. You need to really do a good deep dive into the local community, understand, you know, informal and formal leaders of that group, how the local community works, the organization, the governments, the resources, how it's meant to work, but also understand how it really works. And then you need to use that analysis and build links in with the community and develop them. And it's something that always struck to me when I was actually in Mozambique. I was working with the community, and I asked, you know, what's your favorite animal? I was trying to build rapport, and saying I was out seeing the lions stuff today. I really, you know, love watching them. And the woman turned around and said to me, whichever one I can catch and eat. And it's very true. To me, there's two types of poaching out there. One where it's commercially based, it's all out of profits, mainly in every department, but also the other side is people poach spice bushmeat to survive, and you need to understand the difference of that. If you come in and you want to take that source of food from someone's table, it's going to have a dramatic effect on you. And what we want to do, what our strategy needs to be, is how we reduce the sort of criminal poaching organizations' influence within in the villages and townships, and how we counter that. So you can't come in and just blanket out. And I remember speaking to some of the elders and said, I know poaching happens, that's okay, but in time we're going to reduce it. And they were like going to me, oh no, there's no poaching in the village. And we had to reassure them, I know it is, I understand you have to do the thing, but I'm going to train, I'm going to give you options to move away from that. And there's different things you can do, and it's no silver bullet here. This is a long term, and you must maintain your efforts in the community. You can build, you know, work at building clinics, hospital. Something that I've done recently was, you know, bring a mechanic and a carpenter in from the park into the village for 1 day a week to help run courses, to help give them the skill set needed so they can start looking for employment. And it also gives you a pool then to recruit from if needed. And other things I've done is give every household a chicken and a rooster, to help breed chickens. Most people let them, but it was reassuring that some people didn't, and now they're hatched fuller chickens, hens, and there's, you know, they're looking at sustainment of how they're getting eggs, etc. from. So always look at how you can invest in the community, understand how it really works, but ultimately help the local community make it work. So really do think about that moving forward in your careers. Okay, human intelligence, again, it's key. Understanding, you don't have to any big high tactic gain intelligence. You must win the support of the community, and that's these sort of slides, next couple of slides will reinforce. Once you have the respect of the community, everyone knows who's involved in the poaching. You know, in Northern Ireland, we had a lot of issues in the 80s, 90s, still in some ways, terrorism issues here in Northern Ireland, and everyone knew who was in the organizations and stuff. And the same with these in these villages stuff. You need to win over the local community, win support. An example I had actually in South Africa was working with people in the village, and they wanted to see the impact the park was trying to do and help, and they wanted to help in their own way, but were free to come forward, and that was fine. All I simply said was to me is, you know, if you hear anything, let me know. And you know, I know who the key people are. They did too, and it was reassuring one day that I heard recently that they called into the security manager and said, listen, I've seen that these 3 people, they're all in the car and they're heading out of the village towards the park itself. And straight away, the park manager was able to react and stood to his guards, got people on the roads, and was enough to deter them and to turn back. And so really looked at embedding yourself within the community and building that local intelligence. It will pay dividends in the long run. Again, information operations, stroke intelligence operations. People ought to think it's quite complicated, maybe only for the military and some civilian organizations use it, but it's a great tool to think about in the future. You know, these people don't want to get caught, and you want to implant in the poacher's mind of fear, and then get inside their heads and stuff, that they think that you're always watching and you know exactly what they're doing. And you know, collect the information when you have an incident that happens. You know, really investigate the intelligence, how it happened, collect that data of where poaching and snares get in place, and you look for that pattern, conduct that analysis training, and then you can help you focus where you send your patrols and the activity you need to do. And on the information side of things, I'll give you an example of where we used it. Again, it was in South Africa. We did some canine training, some patrol training with the dogs, and also how to integrate them in a greater sort of defense plan of the area. And one of the key examples where we learned them to track over longer periods of time, but also use of helicopters, how to deploy units to cut off poachers, but also deploy fresh dogs. And we were on a good exercise over a number of distances and stuff, and how to deploy troops to cut the poachers off during the exercise. It was really rewarding doing that. But I said to the manager at the end, I go, you need to be advertising this, you need to get into the information. And they were like, no, I want to keep this secret. But and I explained, you're only keeping a secret from the poachers, and that's not going to have a long-term effect. What if a greater effect was let them know you have this capability. And I did, you know, read an article for the local paper, got a bit of a story in the radio, and you know, you can't do it all the time and you can't overemphasize it, but we played on it. We explained what we did, how we did it, and you know, emphasize that we're going to now see, hear everything. And what that does is you want to implant in the poacher's mind. You know, now they know that park has this capability. They can track over long periods of time. They're trained in the use of helicopters, and they have got night vision now to be able to operate better at night time, and how they track someone, deploy dogs and stuff as cut-offs and patrols, and also how they're putting out observation posts at night time covertly, so obviously watch tracks and key road junctions. And you have to think what that does to the mind of the poacher who doesn't want to get caught. It's a deterrent by overemphasizing our capabilities. They will give that moment of pause. Do I want to really go to that park and reserve? I know they're well trained, they've been receiving training. You know, I'll not go there. And that's what you want to do. You want to protect your area. So always think about how better you can inform the community, and report your successes. You know, let people know we've found these tracks, we're able to track these poachers. And again, it will be another deterrent, because people will read that, hear about the stories, and think, I'm not going to go to that area. It's just too well protected. And that's what you want to do. Again, quickly to finish off, the last sort of slide is amnesty program. These sort of programs have been working very well for centuries now. And again, you know, not saying that you as a park ranger have got the right or the government approval to give amnesty to someone that has been poaching, but it's always the best person to learn from is the enemy as such. And I was really had a good conversation recently. It was in Mozambique with a poacher who's now working in the park as a tracker, but his father was a poacher and his grandfather a poacher. You know, who better to have in an anti-poaching environment than a poacher? And you know, so that old saying that poacher turned gamekeeper. But his knowledge, his skill set is phenomenal of tactics, of who the poachers are and how they infiltrate the park. And again, you could work with the government to offer people an amnesty, or just get people to work with you. You know, identify who the poaching people are, get them the right statements, because the higher up the chain, without getting too much into the targeting sort of cycle of how we just want to dismantle organizations, criminal organizations, is you want to build that sort of jigsaw, and then you need to look at those pieces that you want to remove to really affect the poachers by being removing their weapons, funding. But those key players, especially in ivory trade, who are paying money for the poaching to take place, that's the people we need to understand who they are and how they operate. So never turn an opportunity away from meeting poachers or engaging with them. A lot of them, as I said before, do it out of need to feed a family and are probably looking for a turn of employment. So, work with them, design a program that to bring them in, because if you just want to stop it, it'll drive them more into either an insurgency activities or to be more ruthless in poaching. So give them that opportunity to change. Not everyone will, but it's worth its weight in gold to get those 1 or 2 people into your organization, because that got that mindset. I know time's getting on us, an hour gone, so I'll take any questions that anyone has now.
Andrew, I would just like to thank you for the very, very comprehensive lecture. It's been extremely interesting. And also a big thank you to the TUT students who participated. Really well done. You came up with some really interesting and innovative ideas. We love that. Now I would like to invite everybody to use the reaction tools at the bottom or the chat comments to ask questions. So I see we already have some questions in the chat at the moment. Chegofatsu, I think you presented the answer to question 2, which was also very interesting. So as TUT student, what advice can I get from you if I get to work or even manage a conservation area like Green Rock regarding security operations? And then she asked if you could specifically just refer back to question 5, as she didn't feel confident that she understood you there, Andrew.
No problem. So the biggest thing advice I get, I've said to anyone, is really understand your environment, both within your organization and external. So understand how your organization works. Do that sort of in the paper, do that SWOT analysis, look at your strengths, weaknesses, and don't be afraid to really deep dive into your own weaknesses. If you understand your own weaknesses and strengths, then you can create a plan to develop better, and always keep have that mindset. You wake up every day, I want to improve one thing every day, and if you have that mindset, you will succeed in life and your organization, development security. And so I just remember, what question was 5?
Question 5. What resources do I need to accomplish each action effectively?
Yeah, so what I was looking for, think of it from the very, very basics. And I use that example of creating park rangers. Look at the resources you need. So if you want to deploy a park ranger out on patrol, for example, what does he need? He needs footwear, he needs a uniform or clothes to wear, he needs some, if he's going out for a long time, he needs something to cook with, eat with, so he needs food. How is he going to report back on? So if you make a list of what you want that park ranger to be able to do, then you need to look at then what do I need to give him to achieve that mission. So he needs a communication device, a backup time. So then I need a communication plan. So when you look at really dive into the detail of what you want that person to achieve, and then how you're going to resource him or her to make sure they achieve that objective you have sent for them, and then how you're going to resupply them, how you're going to, if something breaks, how you're going to get that fixed, for example, a vehicle, and it ties into your resource management. And something else done recently was a lot of fuel theft. So we built a locking mechanism because they're running their vehicles down to get rid of the fuel, so the poachers wouldn't come in and steal the fuel from the vehicles at night. But instead of wasting the fuel, if you siphon it down or build a padlock mechanism on the fuel tank, so they're going to have to try to smash it off, which is going to create noise and have a rolling guard around there. So think of how you're going to protect the resources as well. Your resources are key to actually, if the park ranger doesn't have a boots, he's not going to be able to walk far into the bush. to do that. So you need to make sure you resource your people. And even if you think right back to obviously building classrooms, how are you going to get that? If you want to teach somewhere, how are you going to get those supplies? Where are they going to come from? So that's what I mean about resource management.
Thanks, Andrew. So yeah, it's all about thinking through a system and how you supply that system.
Mm-hmm.
There's a comment in the chat, and please forgive me if I'm not going to read your name correctly or pronounce it correctly. I think it's from Babajide Abula. So in my opinion, conservation is being over-militarized in Africa at present. More emphasis should be put on conservation education in communities and having people understand the old ways where people only take what they need, not what they want. So there's a my question, if I can translate that comment into a question, how do we bring the essential military skills that's needed into these conservation systems without militarizing the whole system of conservation?
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's something that I've seen, and you know, I'm not sit with itself. Some tried to stay away from it. You know, a lot. You see a lot of these areas, and it's almost looking like a armorized militarized unit they're patrolling, and it really has a negative effect. I find, because a lot of, firstly, a number of reasons, donors don't want to support that in the first place. So you're going to have a funding issue if you have that sort of mindset. You're almost looking like you want to be a special forces unit out there and all the gear. You know, it puts people off. Will put tourism off. People want to come to that area. So it's something that we try to demilitarize as much as possible, and only militarize where need be. And depends on the area. You know, you may need that sort of military force initially to secure the area and hold it, but then you want to look at options. How can I de-escalate safely and securely, and think about, right, you know, using all those policies. It may take time, you know, education, and as the threat level drops, then you need to change your posture as such as well. You know, you don't need to all carry weapons, for example. If there isn't a threat, you know, maybe one or two people carry for protection against the wildlife itself if you are attacked, or to warn off an animal, but you all don't need to carry weapons. So there's an example of sort of way how to de-escalate. You know, if people see not everyone carrying weapons, well, that's a good sign to start with.
Thank you very much for that answer. Yeah, it's also thinking back to the example of the black mambas, where they don't even, where most of them are not even armed, and there's a much more open approach to the community and assisting the community wherever they can, within the limits of their resources, of course. But I also appreciate the end of that comment where it says, understand the old ways where people only take what they need, not what they want. And I think we could all learn from that.
Yes.
Kaylin, you've got your hand up. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, it's more of a comment. So first, you know, thanks, Andrew. I think that was really interesting, and I like how you unpacked the entire management of a natural area, from security to community liaison. I think it's important for the students to realize, especially that Green Rock exercise is obviously a hypothetical exercise, but it is a good example of a grassroots project that you can actually have the luxury of moving into the project and saying, right, let's set our goals and objectives from the start, and then work everything according to that: funding, security, the works. A reality in conservation as a whole, but specifically in Africa, is a lot of these projects have been started because of a specific project. A problem or issue, and it doesn't give us the opportunity to go through that chronological order of, okay, how do we set up the security? How it was done as reactive conservation as opposed to proactive conservation, and that's what we need to stress now. Is that's what you're working with most of the time, and once you're on that project, we have to find a way to pivot from that reactive outlook on conservation to proactive, because with reactive conservation, that's how we start to over militarize our conservation, specifically when it comes to poaching issues. Reactive outlooks will always end up being with this over-militarized issue. I like that comment from the question from, I think it was from Nigeria, about over-militarizing the conservation. And I believe what we need to do is start investing more in conservation community liaisons as opposed to anti-poaching units. There are obviously going to be areas where you are going to have heavy commercial poaching, and at that stage it goes from conservation to organized crime management. That's not our job anymore as conservationists, and we need to come to terms with that and realize our limitations as conservationists and be able to let go of that portion of it. But definitely when it comes to these types of projects, community liaisons need to be stressed a whole lot more. We need to train our students coming out of conservation courses on community liaison, how to efficiently and effectively relate and communicate with communities, no matter which part of Africa they come from.
Mm.
No, that's,
thank you.
Yeah, very good. And it's one thing I sort of maybe mentioned as well, one of the projects we did, and the parkers did themselves, you know, and it was really, really good, because there's no natal care within the area, so they built a clinic and provided money for a nurse to be there and help with the clinic. But also one advice I give them, I always get the government involved, get the local government official to open it. You may be supplying the money and supplies to do that, but you need to make sure the government's involved as well, because that would buy you a lot of credit with them. But you don't want to try to take over, because that will also cause offence to the government. So, you know, and that works well. You know, I said at the start, community engagement is key. It will take time, but it'll be worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, definitely. A comment from Innocent Buthelezi, and we putting you in a spot with all sorts of problems here. It's all good and well that we employ from the community, but alienation from the community is a problem. How do we support our game rangers faced with this challenge? Andrew, any ideas on that?
It varies again on the project, and probably it's already been highlighted as well. You know, you may need to bring external people in initially, heavily, to obviously build the skill set up within the local community, and then you can waver off. Again, to avoid alienation, it just comes down to working with that community, finding out what their issues and grievances are, and just have the patience and the dialogue. Sometimes dealing with conflict, someone can only stay mad for you for a long period of time. And I did some hostage negotiation before, and you know, even a person who can only stay angry or for so long, and then they have to calm down, and they'll calm down. And that's your key, understanding that when they're at that, they're ready to negotiate, and then that's where you need to come in with a sustained plan of how you're going to deal with their issue. So really, first key to me is dealing with any sort of conflict is be ready to listen, hold your line as your argument as such, but do it in an educated way, and just be patient, and work with the community to solve their issues. And even a small step of showing your willingness to work with them. Like I used that example when I was meeting the community before, and I said about, I know you poach, that's okay. And the guy said to me, one of the leaders came at the end, said, "You're a very strange man. You know, no one's ever come with that approach saying it's okay to poach." I goes, "Well, I can't tell you not to poach until I give you an alternative. What I want to do is develop with you a means of getting you away from that by developing farmland. And it'll take time, it'll take years, but you need to have that plan, and you need to work with the community to demilitarize it, but get their support. And you know, there's no one going to be more effective in that is the key leaders within that village to deter poaching, because they do listen to the old ways of key tribal leaders. If they say there's no poaching, there will be, the poaching will drop off dramatically if they don't give if they come in your support. So gain their support, and you'll gain the confidence of the village and the community.
Thanks, Sandra. It was interesting to me when you, on your comments on the answer to question 2, you know, when we start with a new project, we always want to put something tangible out there, be it a fence or a road or a command center or whatever. But you started with the relationship with the local government, the relationship with the local community, and relationship with the other security infrastructures in the area. So that was, to me, was very interesting and key, that you start out with these relationships, which is not tangible, but that's something that needs to be sort of the foundation of what you start with, even before you do anything else on the ground. So I think that's quite a lesson that I learned from this event.
Yeah, it's key, and it's very easy to come in, and especially work in a park, you know, it's up and running, and come up with big ideas. You need to understand that, you know, some of these people have been fighting these issues for generations, years, with no resources, no funding, no support. And what you don't want to think is, oh, look at that guy, he's just coming with all the big ideas, you know, doesn't understand, and offend him. So really, rapport building is key with those local communities, leaders, and law enforcement and government, to really have that effect and support. You do not want to be working against them from the start, because that will cause all sorts of issues if you don't have local government support, or they think you're in competition with them. And that's why I sort of emphasized before. You bring them in, say, look, the government has built this for you, and we have supported the government in this. You know, that government official is happy that he thinks I've done something for the community, but also he knows that really you've done this, but he's on you're on the hero side to deliver the project for the community.
Thank you, Andrew. Cheryl, I can see your video is on. Would you like to comment?
Andrew, all what I can say is that you opened my students' eyes this morning. Thank you. You've given them more to think about, and it's not just pertaining to the impact that we have on the communities per se. That I'm not saying is not important, that is crucial. But also all the other little links that are important when coming to the security, coming to running a green lodge, just getting out there and getting the job done and getting it done well. I mean, you've got to think of your client's protection. You've got to think of every single aspect pertaining to, I'm not just talking about the conservancy. In that case, many times there's no fence lines, but actually the rangers been trained and been properly skilled in order to do the job and what is expected of them. But once again, from my side, I'm quite proud of what some of my students' comments were. They still got a long way to go, but with your help and your guidance, I think you've actually put them on the right route, and thank you very much for that. And Johan, I think this discussion is very crucial, and maybe we can interlink it into many more share screens, because now we're starting to think how the students see things, and with your guidance and your expertise, like Andrew's expertise and Kaylin's, this morning just showed them that they can make a difference, and they've got a long way to go. So we've all got a long way to go. And thank you, Andrew. That's what I can say. And thank you for giving up your time for us to train students who maybe one day will fill your shoes when they've got big shoes to fill. All right. Please don't leave yet. All right. The students have still got a long way. Kaylin, you're still young. I don't know what your age is, Andrew, but I'm showing the gray hair already. But 21. These guys need your assistance and need your specialist services. Thank you. Johan, it paid off. It did pay off.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Kind words. You know, I really enjoy and I really discussions like this and sharing ideas. And, you know, and thank you for the students who were enthused and took the time to read the document and work up a plan. I hope it's has been really enjoyable and it got you thinking.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Just a comment on Innocent's question as well. I think the question that you asked there, how do we support our game rangers faced with this challenge of alienation? Perhaps it's also a topic we can dive deeper into in the future, and because that's a big question. We don't realize it, but for those rangers working on the ground, it is an issue.
And that's many reasons why they actually stop doing what they're doing. because they're not getting the necessary support out there, or they go into a different route, and that's corruption, or maybe they start poaching themselves in order to survive. So there must be some kind of way. And I know Kaylin is assisting us with the KNR, that's the Klip-Riversberg Nature Reserve Association. And I don't know how many snares we have pulled out there, but we have been told that it could be an inside job where the rangers themselves are setting the snares. So that's one thing that we need to look at.
Yeah, they are not exempt from the pressures of the same pressures as the community where they are from, and that puts them in a very difficult situation.
Yeah.
I see. Sorry, Andrew, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, no, that is one of the caveats. You know, I've had that discussion, and there's no wrong or right. You know, some people, you know, like to bring, you know, the park rangers from outside the community because they know then their family won't be threatened. But then that alienates the little community on the other side of things. That yes, you've stopped that insider threat. However, the local community is alienated because you're not recruiting from a local area, and that sort of insider threat I've had recently. I think 2 weeks ago, a manager got in contact with him that he was observing, and he had police there, and he found out that one of the local scene, the guy taxed his phone, the police commander was taxing them where they was at their briefing, was taxing the poachers where the patrols were going, because he had taken all the phones off the park rangers and only telling them just before they deployed of where they're going to. But one of them seen the policeman's phone, looked over his shoulder, and he was taxing them where the patrols were going. So it's a really ongoing hard subject. It's never going to go away. You must keep your standards up and keep observing and look for that internal threat as well.
I see we have a raised hand in the bottom. Chloe, please go ahead and comment or ask your question.
I want to ask Mr. Andrew. He said something about the building relationship with the government, the community, and so forth. So, in terms of the government, based on the project that he worked, how was the commitment of the government, and going forward, what could be the approach looking in terms of the government relationship?
Yes, the government sort of relationship and sort of commitment varies from country to country and project to project. I find that again, bringing in the information side of things as well. If the government feel that this is a big topic and it's going to get world press or it's going to get a lot of press, they're more keen to work with you and develop things forward if they can see a benefit to them. I'm not trying to deflate governments. There's some really good governments out there who are really enthused, and ministers who want to develop and are anti-poaching, are really committed to wildlife protection and community engagement. So the biggest thing that I think is, it's very varied from country to country, is just engage with them, understand what their aims are, but understand, and you're almost given that carrot, you know, show them that the benefit to them by supporting you is key, and what they will achieve from this. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I see it's almost 9:25. If there are no further questions, I think we are going to thank Andrew and Joe from SAFSIM. Thank you for lending us your expertise. We really look forward to work with you again in the future and to spread your expertise in Africa and engaging with the students and the game reserves to together learn how to do this better.
Andrew, is it also all right if when my students go out into their third year, that when they have a few hiccups, can they email you?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
No problem at all. Anytime or any help that we SAFSIM can be helped, just contact us. I'm more than willing to help.
Because I mean, some of those students are going to go into it like innocent. You also went straight into that, and Kaylin, you as well. And this is one of the important fields when it comes to conservation. We cannot do without this field. And a lot of the students don't have the necessary grounding when it comes to that.
Yeah, totally, and that's why sort of remember that heat training is really important to that ground basing, and you know, people come from different backgrounds, different experience, and I had that issue where, you know, spoke about Mozambique, where you know, as a new photographer there, had just started his career. It was a great opportunity to get out and do wildlife photography, but this was his first, you know, sort of deployment, and other people studying for their master's degree and stuff, and you know, quite naively they went off into the bush and never told anyone where they're going, no communication, and like was a park and no way of tracking them, and even something simple as their vehicle break down or crash, they know, and the threat of lions in the area, you know, it could go wrong very quickly. So it's not just, you know, the terrorism, kidnapping, extortion threat out there. It's something from a vehicle breaking down, being naive about how you deal with that situation.
Yeah, thinking through things. Andrew, thank you very much, and thank you to all the TUT students who participated this morning. Kaylin, it was lovely to have you in and to also receive the benefit of your wise comment. We look forward to welcoming everybody back next week, where we are going to continue looking at disruption, and we are inviting Ian Olivier from Sabi Sand Reserve next to the Kruger Park, and he's going to discuss how their approach to this subject. So you will get a second chance to talk about this. We look forward to have you there, and please attend. It would be lovely to see all of you. Andrew, Kaylin, if you want to come in, you're always welcome.